The knock came at 2:47 a.m. Amelia knew the exact time because she'd been staring at her phone, watching the minutes tick by, waiting for Marcus to come home. Her brother had promised, sworn on their mother's memory, that he'd be back by midnight, that he was done with the gambling, done with the lies, done with whatever dark hole he'd been digging for the past 6 months. She should have known better. 3 sharp raps on the apartment door, deliberate, patient. The kind of knock that said the person on the other side had all the time in the world and knew you weren't going anywhere. Amelia's heart stuttered. She pulled her robe tighter and moved through the dark living room, her bare feet silent on the worn hardwood. Through the peephole, she could see them. 3 men in expensive suits, standing in the flickering light of the hallway. The one in front was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that belonged on a Roman coin. Sharp, unforgiving. Miss Laurent. His voice carried through the door like smoke. Smooth, cultured, with just a hint of something foreign she couldn't quite place. "I know you're there. I can see your shadow under the door." She closed her eyes, pressed her forehead against the cool wood. Every instinct screamed at her to stay silent, to pretend no one was home. But if Marcus owed these people money, and the sick feeling in her gut told her he did, ignoring them would only make things worse. Amelia opened the door, but kept the chain lock engaged. Up close, the man was even more striking. Mid-30s maybe, with dark hair swept back from a face that was all angles and intensity. His eyes were the color of aged whiskey, and they studied her with the kind of focus that made her feel stripped bare. "Miss Laurent," he said again, and this time it wasn't a question. "Who are you?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "My name is Elias Moreau." He said it like she should know it, like everyone should. "I'm here to speak with your brother." "He's not home." "I know." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "He's currently losing what little money he has left at the Diamondback Club, trying to win back what he owes me. A futile effort, I'm afraid." The casual way he said it, like Marcus's desperation was mildly entertaining, sent anger flashing through her fear. "What does he owe you?" $180,000. He watched her reaction, those whiskey eyes missing nothing. Plus interest, which at this point brings it to an even $200,000. The number hit her like a fist to the stomach. $200,000. Marcus made barely $30,000 a year working at the warehouse. She made $45,000 as a social worker. Together, they could never— "I can see you doing the math," Elias continued, his voice almost gentle. "And I can see you reaching the correct conclusion. Your brother cannot pay what he owes. Then why are you here? If you know he can't pay— Because debts must be settled, Miss Laurent, one way or another." He glanced past her, into the apartment. "May I come in? This conversation would be better had somewhere other than your hallway." "No." His eyebrows rose slightly. "No? You show up at my door in the middle of the night, tell me my brother owes you a fortune, and expect me to just let you in?" She lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of strength she had left. "I don't know you. I don't know what you want. And until I do, you can say whatever you need to say from right there." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then slowly, he smiled. It was the kind of smile that should have been charming, but instead felt dangerous. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "And what did you expect?" "Someone weaker, someone who would have already dissolved into tears." His gaze traveled over her face, assessing. "But you're not weak, are you, Amelia? You're the one who's been holding everything together. Paying the bills, cleaning up Marcus's messes, sacrificing your own life to keep him from drowning." The fact that he knew her name, that he knew anything about her, made her skin crawl. "You've been watching us." "I've been watching Marcus." He leaned against the doorframe, casual despite the late hour and the threat humming beneath his words. "You were simply collateral observation, though I must admit, the more I learned about you, the more interesting you became." "I'm not interested in being interesting to you, Just tell me what you want. I want what I'm owed. His voice hardened, the charm evaporating. Your brother has 3 days to pay his debt in full. If he doesn't, I'll take collateral. What kind of collateral? But she already knew. The sick feeling in her gut had been right all along. The kind with a heartbeat, Elias said softly. The kind that can work off a debt when money isn't available. Amelia's hand tightened on the doorframe. You're talking about indentured servitude. I'm talking about consequences. Your brother made choices, Miss Laurent. He borrowed money he couldn't repay. He lied about his ability to pay it back. He's been avoiding my calls for 6 weeks. Elias straightened, and suddenly he seemed larger, more dangerous. I'm a businessman. When someone doesn't pay their debts, others start to think they don't have to pay theirs either. I can't allow that. So you'll take him, make him work for you until... I'm not here for Marcus. The words hung in the air like poison. Amelia stared at him, her heart hammering. What? Your brother is weak, unreliable. He'd be useless to me. Elias's eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. But you, Amelia Laurent, you're strong, capable. You have skills I can use. A social worker with a master's degree in psychology, fluent in 3 languages, trained in crisis intervention and conflict resolution. He paused. I could use someone like you. Use me for what? I have business interests that require someone who understands people. Someone who can read a room, assess threats, negotiate with difficult individuals. Someone who knows how to stay calm under pressure. His gaze traveled over her face again, slower this time. Someone who has been staying calm under pressure her entire life. You want me to work for you, in your criminal organization. I prefer to think of it as a family business with diverse interests. His smile was sharp. But yes, work for me until your brother's debt is paid. 2 years, perhaps 3, depending on how valuable you prove to be. And if I refuse? Then Marcus disappears. And I promise you, Miss Laurent, you won't find his body. The casual way he said it, like her brother's murder would be an inconvenience, nothing more, made her blood run cold. You can't just... There are laws. Miss Laurent. He stepped closer to the door, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something dark and expensive that made her head swim. I am the law in this city. At least, the only law that matters in the circles your brother runs in. The police won't help you. The courts won't help you. The only person who can help Marcus now is you. She wanted to scream, wanted to slam the door in his face and call 911 and pray that someone, anyone, would believe her. But the cold certainty in his eyes told her he was right. This was a world she'd only glimpsed in headlines and crime dramas. A world where people like Elias Moreau operated above the law, where debts were paid in blood or servitude. 3 days, Elias said, pulling a business card from his pocket and sliding it through the gap in the door. That's how long you have to decide. Your freedom for his life. Think about it, Amelia. Think about whether your brother is worth the sacrifice. He turned to leave, his men falling into step behind him. Then he paused, looking back over his shoulder. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I hope you choose yourself. You deserve better than to spend your life saving someone who will never save you back. Then he was gone, disappearing down the hallway like a shadow, leaving her standing there with his card burning a hole in her palm. Marcus came home at dawn. Amelia was sitting on the couch where she'd been for the past 3 hours, watching the city wake up through their small window. Elias Moreau's business card clutched in her hand. Her brother stumbled through the door, reeking of whiskey and cigarette smoke, his shirt untucked and his eyes bloodshot. When he saw her waiting, some of the drunken haze cleared from his face. Amelia. His voice was hoarse. You're still up. Sit down, Marcus. Something in her tone must have warned him because he obeyed immediately, collapsing into the armchair across from her. In the gray morning light, he looked older than his 28 years, worn down, broken. A man named Elias Moreau came here tonight, Amelia said, her voice eerily calm. He said you owe him $200,000. Marcus's face went white. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus, Amelia, I can explain. Can you? She leaned forward, her hands clasped together so tightly her knuckles were white. Can you explain how you accumulated a debt that size? Can you explain why you've been lying to me for 6 months, telling me you were working late when you were actually at underground poker games? Can you explain why you promised Mom, on her deathbed, that you'd take care of yourself, take care of us, and then threw it all away? I was trying to win money. His voice rose, desperate. I thought if I could just hit big once, I could pay off Mom's medical bills. I could get us out of this shithole apartment. You could gamble away our future? Amelia's voice cracked. Marcus, Mom's bills are paid. I've been paying them. You didn't need to hit big. You needed to show up, to work, to be the brother I needed after she died. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. I'm sorry. God, Amelia, I'm so sorry. I'll fix this. I'll go to the police. The police can't help us. She stood, moving to the window. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, millions of people going about their lives, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding in this tiny apartment. Elias Moreau isn't someone the police can touch. You know that. You had to have known that when you borrowed from him. I didn't borrow from him directly. I borrowed from this guy, Carlo, and then Carlo sold my debt to someone else, and it kept getting passed around until... He broke off, his voice breaking. Until Moreau bought it. And everyone says that when Moreau comes for you, you're dead. You're just... dead. Amelia closed her eyes. He gave us 3 days. 3 days to come up with the money, or he takes collateral. What kind of collateral? She turned to face him. Me. The word hung in the air between them like a guillotine blade. No. Marcus was on his feet, shaking his head violently. No, absolutely not. I won't let him take you. I'll figure something out. There's nothing to figure out, Marcus. We don't have $200,000. We don't have $20,000. We barely have $2,000. Her voice was steady now, resigned. He doesn't want you. He wants me. To work for him, use my skills for his business interests. 2 or 3 years, he said, until the debt is paid. That's slavery. That's the price of your choices. The words came out harsher than she intended, but she was too tired to soften them. This is what happens, Marcus. This is what happens when you make stupid decisions and expect other people to clean up your mess. He flinched like she'd hit him. I never wanted this. I never wanted you to... But here we are. Amelia moved back to the couch, suddenly exhausted. Here we are, and I have to decide whether my little brother's life is worth 2 years of mine. Don't do it! Marcus dropped to his knees in front of her, his hands gripping hers. Please, Amelia, don't do it. Let me handle this. Let me face the consequences. You've spent your whole life protecting me, but I'm a grown man. You can what? Fight off a mob boss and his organization? Run? Hide? For how long, Marcus? How long before they find you? How long before they hurt you to send a message? She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. I can't watch you die. I can't. You're all I have left, and you're all I have. His voice broke. I can't let you sacrifice yourself for me. Not again. But they both knew the truth. Amelia had been sacrificing herself for Marcus since their father left when she was 12, since their mother got sick when she was 19, since Marcus dropped out of college and she'd worked double shifts to keep them afloat. Sacrifice was woven into the fabric of who she was. One more sacrifice. What difference would it make? The next 2 days passed in a blur of anxiety and impossible calculations. Amelia looked into loans, into selling everything they owned, into desperate schemes that might yield a fraction of what they needed. But every path led to the same conclusion. They were trapped. On the morning of the 3rd day, Amelia called the number on Elias Moreau's card. He answered on the first ring. Miss Laurent, I've been waiting for your call. I'll do it. The words felt like stones in her mouth. I'll work for you, but I have conditions. A pause. Then, I'm listening. Marcus goes free, completely free. You never contact him again. You don't collect from him. You don't use him as leverage against me. As far as your organization is concerned, his debt is paid in full. Agreed. What else? I want it in writing, a contract that specifies the terms, the duration, and what happens when my service is complete. You want to negotiate with me? There was something that might have been amusement in his voice. You have courage, I'll give you that. You said you needed someone who could negotiate with difficult individuals. Consider this my first negotiation. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was surprisingly warm. Very well. I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract, standard terms, 2-year duration based on the debt-to-service ratio. And I'll add a clause. If you complete your service satisfactorily and without betrayal, you walk away free and clear with no further obligation. It was more than she'd expected, which meant she was missing something. When do I start? Tonight. I'll send a car for you at 8. Pack what you need, Amelia. You won't be coming back to this apartment. The finality of it struck her like a physical blow. Her life, her small, safe, predictable life, was ending. One more thing, she said quietly. Yes? Don't hurt him. Please. Whatever else happens, don't hurt my brother. Elias was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd heard it. I give you my word. As long as you fulfill your end of the bargain, Marcus is safe. It would have to be enough. The car that arrived at 8 p.m. was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver was a stone-faced man who introduced himself only as Vincent and loaded her single suitcase into the trunk without comment. Marcus had wanted to come outside with her, to see her off, but she'd forbidden it. She couldn't bear to see his face, couldn't bear the weight of his guilt and her own complicated tangle of resentment and love. So she'd hugged him in the apartment, told him to be safe, and walked out alone. The drive took 40 minutes, leaving the city behind for winding roads that cut through dense forest. When they finally pulled through a set of massive iron gates, Amelia felt her breath catch. The estate was stunning. A modern mansion of glass and stone that seemed to grow out of the hillside itself, all clean lines and dramatic angles. Lights glowed from within, warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the cold dread settling in her stomach. Vincent parked in a circular driveway and opened her door. Mr. Moreau is waiting for you in his office. I'll take your bag to your room. My room? You'll be living here, Miss Laurent, in the East Wing. Mr. Moreau prefers to keep his consultants close. Consultants. As if that's what she was. The interior of the mansion was just as breathtaking as the exterior. Soaring ceilings, modern art on the walls, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Her footsteps echoed on marble floors as Vincent led her through a maze of hallways to a set of double doors. He knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. Elias Moreau stood behind a desk, his attention on a laptop. He looked up when she entered, and something flickered across his face. Satisfaction, maybe, or relief. Amelia, welcome. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please, sit. She sat, acutely aware of how out of place she looked in her jeans and sweater, how small she felt in this vast room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights below. The contract, Elias said, sliding a folder across the desk. Read it carefully, ask questions. This is your one chance to negotiate. She opened the folder with shaking hands. The contract was surprisingly straightforward. 2 years of service, room and board provided, a monthly stipend deposited into an account in her name. Her duties were listed as consultation, negotiation, and conflict resolution for business interests. Marcus's debt was explicitly forgiven upon signing, with a clause guaranteeing his safety. The termination clause, though. It says I can only leave after 2 years, or if you release me earlier, she said, looking up. What if I want to leave before then? Then you breach the contract. Marcus's debt reinstates with compound interest, and... He paused. And you'll have made an enemy of me, Amelia. I wouldn't recommend it. Her hands tightened on the pages. And what about, if you decide you want more than just my professional skills? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications. Elias leaned back in his chair, studying her. Are you asking if I plan to force myself on you? Heat flooded her face, but she held his gaze. Yes. No. The word was absolute. I don't force women into my bed, Amelia. It's beneath me, and frankly, it holds no appeal. He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it in front of her. But if you come to me willingly, if you decide you want to explore whatever this is between us, then all bets are off. There's nothing between us, isn't there? He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, that dark, expensive scent that made her head swim. I saw it in your eyes that first night. Underneath the fear, underneath the anger, there was recognition. Like some part of you had been waiting for someone to finally see you, really see you. You're delusional, perhaps. His smile was dangerous. But you're here anyway. You chose this. You could have told me to take Marcus, could have walked away, but you didn't. Because she couldn't. Because despite everything Marcus had done, despite the resentment and exhaustion and bone-deep weariness, he was still her brother. Still family. I did it for him, she said firmly. Did you? Elias tilted his head, studying her. Or did you do it for yourself? Did you take this opportunity to finally escape the life you'd built around other people's needs? To finally put yourself first? The words struck too close to home. Amelia stood abruptly, needing distance. Where do I sign? He watched her for a long moment, then retrieved a pen from his desk. She signed quickly, her hand steady despite the way her heart hammered. Good. Elias took the contract, his fingers brushing hers briefly. Now, let me show you your quarters. Her quarters turned out to be a suite larger than her entire apartment. Bedroom, sitting room, bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. French doors opened onto a private balcony overlooking the grounds. There are clothes in the closet, Elias said, moving through the space with casual ownership. Various sizes. Wear what fits. My housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, will help you with anything you need. You'll take your meals with me unless I specify otherwise. Amelia set her small suitcase down, feeling completely untethered. And my actual job? What exactly will I be doing? Tomorrow, we'll discuss specifics. Tonight, you should rest. It's been a difficult few days. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. You'll need to give your notice at your current job. 2 weeks is standard, I believe? You want me to quit my job? You work for me now, Amelia, exclusively. I can't have you divided between 2 worlds. The finality of it crashed over her. Her job at the community center, the families she worked with, the kids who depended on her, all of it, gone. I need to at least say goodbye, she said quietly. The families I work with, they'll wonder what happened to me. Something flickered across his face. You can tell them you've accepted a position in the private sector, which is true in a way. You have until the end of the week to transition your cases. It was more than she'd expected. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. His smile was sharp. You haven't figured out the price. Then he was gone, the door closing with a soft click. Amelia stood in the center of that beautiful, luxurious prison and tried to remember how to breathe. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Amelia lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through everything that had led her here. At some point around 3 a.m., she finally drifted off, only to be woken what felt like minutes later by a soft knock at her door. "Miss Laurent?" Mrs. Chen's voice gentle and professional. "Mr. Moreau requests your presence downstairs. There's been an incident." Amelia dragged herself out of bed, pulled on jeans and a sweater from the closet. Both fit perfectly, which was somehow more unnerving than if they hadn't, and followed Mrs. Chen down to the first floor. The scene in Elias's study made her stop short. Two men stood in the center of the room, both bloodied. One had a nasty gash across his forehead, the other was holding his arm at an odd angle. Broken, probably. Elias stood behind his desk, fury radiating from every line of his body. "Amelia!" He turned when she entered, and she saw him make a visible effort to control his anger. "Thank you for coming. I need your assessment." "My assessment?" "You're a trained crisis counselor. These two idiots got into a fight over a woman at one of my clubs. Now, they're both claiming the other started it, and I need to know who's lying." This was a test. She could feel it in the way Elias watched her, in the way the two men shifted nervously, in the weight of the moment. Amelia stepped forward, her professional mask sliding into place. "What are your names?" "Tony," said the one with the head wound. "Marco," said the one with the broken arm. She studied them both for a long moment, noting body language, eye contact, the small tells that people couldn't quite hide. Tony was scared but defiant. Marco was scared and trying to hide it with bravado. "Tell me what happened," she said to Tony. "Start from the beginning." He launched into his story. Marco had been hitting on his girlfriend, wouldn't take no for answer, threw the first punch when Tony intervened. It was smooth, rehearsed, with just enough detail to sound convincing. Then she turned to Marco. "Your turn." His story was different. Tony's girlfriend had been flirting with him. Tony got jealous and attacked him without warning. But as he spoke, his eyes kept darting to Tony, and his right hand, the uninjured one, kept clenching and unclenching. Classic signs of deception. "Marco's lying," Amelia said quietly, turning to Elias. "Tony's story is consistent with the injuries and the body language. Marco can't hold eye contact. He's exhibiting defensive posturing, and he's looking to Tony for validation. He's the one who escalated." Silence crashed over the room. Then Elias smiled, slow and dangerous. "Thank you, Amelia. That's exactly what I needed to know." He turned to Marco, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You lied to me. You started a fight in my establishment, put my people at risk, and then lied about it. Boss, Get out. You're done. I don't employ liars." Elias's voice was cold. "Vincent will escort you off the property. If I see you again, it won't end well." Marco stumbled out, terror written across his face. Tony started to follow, but Elias stopped him. "You, go to the clinic downstairs, get that head looked at, and next time someone touches your woman, you come to me first. Understood?" "Yes, boss. Thank you, boss." When they were alone, Elias turned to Amelia. "That was impressive. You read them perfectly. That's what I do. What I did, at my job. Read people, assess situations, de-escalate conflicts." She crossed her arms. "Is that what you'll be using me for? Interrogating your employees?" "Among other things." He moved to a side table and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. "You have a gift, Amelia, the ability to see through people's masks, to understand what drives them. That's incredibly valuable in my world." He held out a glass to her. She took it, more to have something to do with her hands than because she wanted it. "What happened to that man, Marco? He'll live. I'm not a monster, despite what you might think. But he can't work for me anymore. I can't trust him." Because he lied about a bar fight? Because small lies lead to big ones. Because if he'll lie about something insignificant, he'll lie about something that matters. Because in my world, loyalty and honesty are the only currencies that matter. Elias took a sip of his drink. "You were honest with me just now, even though it would have been easier to refuse, to say you couldn't tell who was lying. Why? Because you asked me to do a job, and I don't do things halfway. She met his gaze. And because if I'm going to be here, if I'm going to do this, I might as well do it right. His smile was genuine this time, warm and almost proud. You're going to do very well here, Amelia Laurent. Better than you think. She wasn't sure if that was a promise or a threat. The first month passed in a strange blur of routine and surreality. Amelia's days fell into a pattern. Mornings reviewing files on Elias's various business interests, afternoons sitting in on meetings where she assessed potential partners and flagged threats, evenings attending dinners where she stood beside Elias like a queen and used every skill she'd honed as a social worker to read the room. She was good at it, better than good. Within 2 weeks, she'd identified an embezzler in Elias's logistics division, prevented a deal with a supposedly legitimate businessman who was actually working with a rival organization, and negotiated a truce between 2 of his lieutenants who'd been on the verge of open warfare. Elias had been right. This work, as morally gray as it was, suited her in ways her old job never had. There, she'd been hamstrung by bureaucracy, limited resources, and a system that often failed the people she was trying to help. Here, when she identified a problem, it got fixed immediately. When she made a recommendation, people listened. It was intoxicating and terrifying, because with each passing day, with each success, she felt herself changing, becoming harder, more comfortable with the darkness of Elias's world. The night everything shifted, she was in Elias's study going over reports when Vincent burst through the door. "Boss, we have a situation. The warehouse on 5th, it's been hit. 3 men down, 1 critical." Elias was on his feet immediately. "Get the cars, we're going now." He turned to Amelia. "Come with me." "What? Why would I?" "Because one of my men is dying, and I need to know if he can be saved or if I need to start planning his funeral. You're trained in crisis assessment. Let's go." The warehouse was chaos when they arrived. Men shouting, blood on the concrete, the smell of gunpowder still hanging in the air. Elias's security had moved the wounded to a back office, and Amelia's professional instincts kicked in immediately as soon as she saw them. 2 had relatively minor injuries, 1 gunshot to the shoulder, 1 to the thigh. The 3rd was bad. Chest wound, labored breathing, skin going gray. "Collapsed lung," she said immediately, dropping to her knees beside him. "He needs a hospital, now." "No hospitals." Elias's voice was firm. "No police reports, no questions. Can he survive transport to my private physician?" She checked the man's pulse, assessed his breathing. "Maybe, but it's risky. He needs immediate intervention." "Then intervene." "I'm not a doctor." "You have EMT training. I know, it was in your file. I have medical supplies here. Do what you can." It was insane. She wasn't qualified for this, wasn't trained for chest wounds and field medicine. But the man on the floor was dying, and there was no time to argue. "Fine, I need supplies. IV fluids, bandages, a chest tube kit if you have one." Elias barked orders, and within minutes she had what she needed. Her hands were shaking as she worked, but her training took over. She inserted the chest tube, packed the wound, started fluids. It wasn't enough. He really did need a hospital, but it might keep him alive long enough to get to Elias's private physician. 30 minutes later, they were loading the wounded man into an SUV. The other 2 had been patched up and were stable. Amelia's hands were covered in blood, her clothes ruined, but the critical patient was still breathing. "You saved his life," Elias said quietly as they drove back to the estate. "He would have died if you hadn't been there. He might still die. But he has a chance now. Because of you." His hand found hers, his fingers threading through hers despite the blood. "Thank you." She should have pulled away, should have reminded him this was business, nothing more. Instead, she let him hold her hand as they drove through the night, too exhausted and too shaken to care about maintaining distance. Back at the mansion, Elias led her to his private bathroom. Shower. I'll have Mrs. Chen bring you clean clothes. I should go back to my room? Amelia. His voice was gentle but firm. You just performed field medicine on a gunshot victim in a warehouse. You're shaking. You need to process what just happened. Let me help. She was shaking. She hadn't even noticed, but now that he mentioned it, she couldn't stop the tremors running through her body. He started the shower, adjusted the temperature, then stepped back. I'll be in my room if you need me, but take your time. After he left, Amelia stripped off her bloody clothes and stepped under the scalding water. She stood there for a long time, watching the blood swirl down the drain, trying to reconcile the woman she'd been a month ago with the woman she'd become. She'd saved a man's life tonight, a man who worked for a criminal organization who'd probably done terrible things. She'd done it without hesitation, without question. What did that make her? When she finally emerged, wrapped in a plush robe, she found Elias sitting on the edge of his bed, still dressed, his head in his hands. You should be asleep, she said softly. He looked up, and the exhaustion in his eyes mirrored her own. So should you. I can't stop shaking. Adrenaline crash. It'll pass. He patted the bed beside him. Sit. She should have refused, should have gone back to her room, put distance between them, remembered all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, she sat. The man who was shot, Elias said quietly. His name is David. He has a wife, 2 kids. He works in my security division because it's the only job that pays enough to cover his daughter's medical bills. She has leukemia. The information hit her like a physical blow. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to understand something. He turned to face her fully. The people who work for me, they're not faceless criminals. They're fathers and brothers and sons. They work for me because I pay well. I protect them, and I give them opportunities they wouldn't have otherwise. What I do, it's not always legal, but it's not always evil either. You're trying to justify. I'm trying to help you understand the world you're living in now. His hand covered hers, warm and solid. I know what you think of me, Amelia. I know you see me as some kind of monster who forced you into servitude. But I want you to see the whole picture. The good and the bad. The gray areas where most of us actually live. She wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her moral high ground, her sense of righteousness. But she'd spent the last month watching him operate, watching how his people looked at him with respect and loyalty rather than fear, watching how he took care of the people under his protection. It wasn't black and white. Nothing was... I'm tired, she said finally. I'm tired of thinking, tired of analyzing, tired of trying to figure out who I am anymore. Then don't think. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. Just be here, in this moment. Let yourself feel whatever you're feeling without judgment. What she was feeling was too complicated to name. Fear and attraction, resentment and gratitude, anger and something dangerously close to understanding. I should go to my room, she whispered. You should. But he made no move to release her hand. Elias. Stay. The word was barely a breath. Please, I don't want to be alone tonight, and I don't think you do either. He was right. The thought of going back to her room, of lying alone in the dark with her thoughts spinning, it was unbearable. Just to sleep, she said firmly. Just to sleep, he agreed. She should have known better, should have recognized the danger in the way her heart raced when he was near, in the way she'd started looking for him in every room, in the way his rare smiles had started to feel like victories. But exhaustion made her reckless. She let him pull her down onto the bed, let him wrap his arms around her, let herself sink into the warmth of another human being who understood the weight of impossible choices. Within minutes, she was asleep. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the realization that she was curled against Elias's chest, his arm draped over her waist, his breathing slow and even with sleep. For a moment she just lay there, aware of how right it felt, how safe, how utterly dangerous. Then his eyes opened, those whiskey-colored eyes that saw too much, and she knew she should move. Should put distance between them before this became something more than a moment of weakness. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. "I should go." But she didn't move. Probably. Neither did he. They lay there in the gray morning light, suspended in a moment that felt both inevitable and impossible. Then Elias's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. "Tell me this is a line we can't cross." She should have. Every rational part of her brain screamed at her to pull away, to remember that he was her captor, that she was here under duress, that whatever attraction existed between them was twisted and wrong. But she'd spent her whole life being rational, being responsible, doing the right thing. And where had it gotten her? Instead of pulling away, she closed the distance between them. The kiss started soft, tentative, like they were both testing boundaries. Then Elias groaned against her mouth, his hand sliding into her hair, and everything ignited. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and hungry and fierce, like they were both starving for something they'd been denying themselves. His hands moved over her, claiming, possessive, and she responded with equal fervor, her fingers digging into his shoulders, pulling him closer. "Amelia." He breathed her name against her lips. "We should stop. This isn't—" "Don't." She kissed him again, silencing his protests. "Don't think. Don't analyze. Just be here. With me." She was using his own words against him, and from the way his eyes darkened, he knew it. "If we do this," he said, his forehead pressed against hers, "there's no going back. You won't be able to pretend you're here just because of your brother anymore. Maybe I don't want to pretend anymore." The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest. She'd spent a month lying to herself, telling herself she hated this, hated him, was counting down the days until she could leave. But the truth was more complicated. The truth was, she felt more alive here than she had in years. More seen, more challenged, more herself than she'd ever been in her careful, controlled life. The truth was, she wanted this, wanted him. "Last chance," Elias said, even as his hands moved to the tie of her robe. "Tell me no, and we never speak of this again. I'll respect your boundaries. I'll keep my distance." She looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't expected: vulnerability. This dangerous, powerful man was giving her the choice, trusting her with something precious. "I don't want you to keep your distance," she whispered. "I want you to stop pulling away. Stop treating me like I'm going to break. Just take what you want." His smile was slow and devastating. "Everything I want would take all night. Then it's a good thing we have time." What happened next was inevitable. They'd been circling each other for a month, dancing around the attraction that had been there from the moment he walked into her life. Now, finally, they stopped fighting it. Elias took his time, learning every inch of her skin, every place that made her gasp or tremble. His hands and mouth were everywhere, building heat and need until she was begging incoherently. And when they finally came together, when boundaries dissolved and they moved in perfect rhythm, it felt like something fundamental clicking into place. Like she'd been holding her breath for years and was finally allowed to exhale. Afterward, she lay in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. Outside, the world continued on. But here, in this moment, nothing else mattered. "No regrets?" Elias asked quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. "Ask me later," she murmured, already drifting back to sleep. His laugh rumbled through his chest. "I'll hold you to that." The next 2 weeks were a strange dance of domesticity and danger. By day, Amelia continued her work assessing threats and negotiating deals. By night, she fell into Elias's bed, into his arms, into a relationship that was as complicated as it was consuming. She should have felt guilty, should have felt like she was betraying herself, her principles, everything she'd believed about right and wrong. Instead, she felt free. Marcus called occasionally from the apartment. He'd gotten a better job, was going to counseling, seemed to be genuinely trying to turn his life around. Each time they talked, Amelia felt the complicated tangle of emotions. Relief that he was okay, resentment that she was here because of his choices, love because he was still her brother. "You sound different," Marcus said during one call. "Happier, maybe?" "I don't know what I am anymore," she admitted. "Are they treating you okay? Is Moreau, is he—" "I'm fine, Marcus. Really. Just different." She couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't explain that she'd fallen for her captor, that the lines between obligation and choice had blurred beyond recognition, that she woke up each morning not sure who she was anymore. The complexity of it all came crashing down the night Elias took her to a meeting with the Castellano family. "This is important," he said, as they dressed for dinner. "The Castellanos control the port operations. If we can negotiate a better arrangement with them, it opens up significant opportunities. But they're old school, traditional. They'll be watching you, trying to figure out if you're a weakness they can exploit. Then we won't give them any openings." She smoothed down the dress he'd chosen, midnight blue, elegant, expensive. "What's my role?" "Stay close, observe, tell me what you see, and—" He paused, adjusting his cufflinks. "Let them see that you're mine, completely." The possessiveness in his voice sent heat spiraling through her. "And how do I do that?" His smile was dangerous. "Touch me. Look at me like you can't imagine being anywhere else. Make them believe that you belong to me, body and soul." "I'm not an actress." "You won't need to be." He pulled her close, his hands settling on her waist. "Because it's not an act anymore, is it?" She couldn't deny it. Somewhere along the way, this had become real. The meeting was held at an exclusive restaurant, the kind with no sign and guards at the door. The Castellanos were already there when they arrived. The patriarch, Antonio, and his two sons, Marco and Vincent. Antonio Castellano was exactly what Amelia had imagined. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, radiating old-world power and danger. His sons flanked him like wolves, all predatory smiles and calculating gazes. "Moreau." Antonio stood, offering his hand. "And this must be the famous Amelia Laurent. We've heard much about you." "All good things, I hope," Amelia said smoothly, shaking his hand. "Interesting things." His eyes assessed her, calculating. "My sources say you've become quite indispensable to Elias here, that you have a gift for reading people." "I do my job." "And what exactly is your job, Miss Laurent?" This from Marco, the eldest son. His gaze traveled over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Consultant? Or something more personal?" "Both," Elias said, his hand settling possessively on her back. "Amelia is my partner in all things. Any business you conduct with me, you conduct with her." The claim was clear. The Castellanos exchanged glances, recalculating. Dinner was a carefully choreographed dance of power and politics. Amelia said little, but she watched everything. The way Marco's hand shook when he reached for his wineglass, nervous or angry, she couldn't tell. The way Vincent kept checking his phone under the table like he was waiting for a message. The way Antonio watched Elias with the calculating gaze of a man looking for weakness. "Your operation has expanded significantly this past year," Antonio observed halfway through the meal. "New territories, new ventures. Some might say you're becoming ambitious." "I prefer to think of it as strategic growth," Elias replied smoothly. "Growth requires resources, infrastructure, partnerships." Antonio's gaze slid to Amelia. "And yet, you've refused every alliance we've offered. Makes a man wonder if you think you don't need us anymore." This was the real meeting. Everything else had been prologue. "I value our relationship, Antonio, but I don't need to be dependent on anyone." Elias's hand found Amelia's under the table, a silent communication. I prefer partnerships where both parties benefit equally. Equality. Marco laughed, the sound harsh. You're half our age, Moreau. You've been running this organization for what, 5 years? We've been in this business for 3 generations. There is no equality. Then perhaps it's time for a new generation to lead. Elias's voice was silk over steel. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Marco half rose from his seat, his face flushed with anger, but Antonio stopped him with a gesture. Careful, boy, Antonio said, though his eyes never left Elias. You're playing a dangerous game. The families won't tolerate disrespect. I'm not disrespecting anyone. I'm stating facts. The old ways are dying, Antonio. The families that adapt will survive. Those that don't? Elias shrugged. Well, history has shown us what happens to those who refuse to evolve. Amelia could feel the tension crackling like electricity. This was a challenge, carefully worded, but unmistakable. Elias was drawing a line, daring Antonio to cross it. Your woman is very quiet, Antonio observed, his attention shifting to her. Does she not have opinions on these matters? It was a trap. Whatever she said would either make her look naive or reveal too much. But Elias had brought her here for a reason. I think, Amelia said carefully, that respect is earned, not inherited. I think that tradition is important, but so is innovation. And I think that the strongest partnerships are built on mutual benefit, not on one party trying to dominate the other. She paused, meeting Antonio's eyes. I also think that Marco has been texting someone for the past hour, that Vincent looks like he'd rather be anywhere else, and that you, Mr. Castellano, are testing Elias to see if he can be intimidated. He can't, so perhaps we should stop posturing and discuss actual business. Silence crashed over the table. Then Antonio laughed, a genuine booming sound that startled everyone. She's sharp as a blade, Moreau. I see why you keep her close. She's the smartest person in any room she enters, Elias said, and the pride in his voice made her heart stutter, which is why I trust her judgment completely. Then tell me, Miss Laurent, with that sharp mind of yours, what do you think we should do? How should the Castellanos and Moreau organization move forward? It was a test, perhaps the most important one she'd faced. Amelia took a breath, channeling every skill she'd honed over the past 2 months. I think you should expand the port operations together. 50-50 partnership, with shared oversight and profits. You bring your infrastructure and connections. Elias brings his security and distribution networks. Neither of you has to trust the other completely because you'll both have oversight. And you'll both benefit from eliminating the middlemen who are currently taking a cut. She could see them processing it, calculating the benefits and risks. It could work, Vincent said quietly, if we had the right safeguards in place. We draw up a contract, Amelia continued. Specific terms, specific durations, specific consequences for breach. Legal and binding, even in this world. No one gets screwed. Everyone profits. Antonio studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Elias. I accept, on 2 conditions. Name them. 1, we start small. 1 joint operation to prove the concept. If it works, we expand. If it doesn't, we part ways with no hard feelings. Agreed. And the second? Your woman, Amelia, oversees the contract negotiations. I want someone who's loyal to you, but not afraid to tell you when you're wrong. Someone who sees the whole picture. He smiled. She's an asset, Moreau. Don't waste her. I have no intention of wasting her, Elias said quietly, his hand tightening on hers. Ever. They left the restaurant an hour later, the deal struck, the terms agreed upon. As soon as they were in the car, Elias pulled her against him, his mouth claiming hers in a kiss that was fierce and proud and absolutely devastating. You were magnificent, he said when they finally broke apart. The way you handled Antonio, the way you saw through their games and offered a solution that benefited everyone. He kissed her again. You're extraordinary, Amelia Laurent. I just did what made sense. No, you did what no one else could have done. You created a path forward where there wasn't one. His hands cupped her face. Do you understand what this means? You just secured a deal that will bring in millions. You've proven yourself to the most powerful family in the region. You're not just my consultant anymore. You're my partner in everything. The weight of those words settled over her like a mantle. She'd crossed another line tonight. She wasn't just surviving in his world anymore. She was thriving in it. Take me home, she whispered. His smile was slow and devastating. Always. 3 months into her contract, everything changed. Amelia was in Elias's study reviewing the Castellano partnership documents when Marcus called. She almost didn't answer. She'd been avoiding his calls lately, unable to reconcile the guilt of her situation with the reality of her feelings, but something made her pick up. Amelia. His voice was tight with panic. I need your help. Her stomach dropped. Marcus, what did you do? Nothing. I swear. I've been clean. I've been working. I haven't even looked at a card game. But he broke off, and she could hear voices in the background shouting. There are men here. They say I owe them money, but I don't. I swear I don't. The line went dead. Amelia's hands shook as she immediately dialed Elias. He answered on the first ring. Something's wrong with Marcus. He called, said men were at his apartment claiming he owed them money, then the line cut off. I'll send people immediately. What's the address? She gave it to him, her mind racing. Marcus had been clean. She knew he had, which meant either someone was trying to intimidate him or, it's a trap, she said suddenly. It's a trap meant for you. Someone's using Marcus to get to me, to get to you. Elias's silence confirmed her suspicion. Stay here. I'll handle it. No. If they have my brother, I'm coming with you. Amelia. He's my brother, Elias. I'm coming. She heard him sigh. Fine, but you stay in the car. No arguments. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to Marcus's apartment building. Elias's men fanned out, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. Amelia watched from the SUV, her heart in her throat, as they breached the apartment. Gunshots rang out, sharp, sudden, terrifying. Then silence. Vincent emerged a moment later, his face grim. He spoke to Elias in low tones, and she saw Elias's expression go dark. Then he turned and gestured for her to come inside. She didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at her to stay in the car, to let whatever had happened remain unknown. But Marcus was in there, and she had to know. The apartment was a wreck, furniture overturned, glass shattered. 3 men lay dead on the floor, their blood pooling on the hardwood. And in the corner, hands bound, face bruised but alive. Marcus! She ran to him, dropping to her knees, her hands shaking as she worked to untie the ropes. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? I'm fine. Jesus, Amelia, I thought they were going to kill me. He looked past her to Elias, fear and gratitude mixing in his expression. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Who were they? Elias asked, his voice cold as he surveyed the bodies. Who sent them? I don't know. They just showed up, said I owed money to some guy named Russo, that I'd been gambling again. But I haven't. I swear. Russo. Elias's jaw clenched. Marco Russo. Antonio Castellano's nephew. The pieces clicked into place. This was retaliation. For the deal. For making them share power instead of dictating terms. Yes. Elias pulled out his phone, barking orders in rapid-fire Italian. Then he turned to Marcus. You need to disappear for a while. They used you once. They'll try again. I have a safe house upstate. You'll stay there until this is resolved. But my job, my apartment, I'll handle it. Right now, your life is more important than your lease. Marcus looked at Amelia, questions in his eyes. Amelia, what's going on? What have you gotten yourself into? She wanted to explain, wanted to tell him that it was complicated, that she'd made choices that changed her, that she wasn't the same sister who'd sacrificed herself for him 3 months ago. But Elias's hand settled on her shoulder, grounding her. "Your sister saved your life tonight," Elias said quietly. "Because of the position she holds, because of the power she's earned, I was able to mobilize my people immediately. If she'd been anyone else, you'd be dead right now." The words hung in the air, brutal and honest. "Go pack a bag," Elias continued. "You have 10 minutes. My men will take you to the safe house. You'll be comfortable there, but you won't leave until I give the all clear. Understood?" Marcus nodded numbly and stumbled toward his bedroom. As soon as he was gone, Amelia turned to Elias. "What are you going to do?" "What I have to do. Send a message that attacking my family has consequences." "Your family?" The words escaped before she could stop them. His hand cupped her face, tilting her chin up. "You're mine, Amelia, which makes Marcus mine too, and I protect what's mine." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. "I'm coming with you," she said. "Whatever you're planning, wherever you're going, I'm coming. This isn't going to be pretty. I know. But if I'm going to be your partner, I need to see all of it. The good and the bad. The violence and the consequences." He studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right. But you stay close to me. No matter what happens. Always." The confrontation with Marco Russo happened in a warehouse on the edge of the city. Neutral ground, Elias called it, though the dozen armed men surrounding them suggested otherwise. Marco Russo was younger than Amelia had expected, maybe mid-20s, with his uncle's calculating eyes and a smirk that made her want to slap him. "Moreau." He spread his arms wide in mock welcome. "And you brought your pretty consultant. How domestic." "You attacked my family," Elias said, his voice deadly calm. "You sent men to kidnap and kill her brother. That violates every code we live by." "I sent a message. You've been getting too big for your boots, Moreau, making deals with my uncle over my head, acting like you're untouchable. Someone needed to remind you that you're not. By going after an innocent man? By going after your weakness." Marco's gaze slid to Amelia. "Her. Everyone knows you're obsessed with her. So I figured, hurt the brother, hurt her, hurt you. Simple math." The casual cruelty of it made Amelia's blood boil. But before she could speak, Elias stepped forward, his body radiating controlled violence. "You made a mistake, Russo. A fatal one. You can't touch me. I'm Castellano blood. You kill me, you start a war with my uncle. Your uncle disowned you 3 hours ago." Elias's smile was cold. "I called him immediately after I pulled Marcus to safety. Told him what you'd done, how you'd violated the treaty we'd just signed. Do you know what he said?" Marco's smirk faltered. "He said you were a liability, that you'd been undermining him for months, trying to take power you hadn't earned. He said—" Elias paused. "He said to handle you however I saw fit, that as far as he's concerned, you're no longer family." The color drained from Marco's face. "No, he wouldn't." "He did. You're alone, Russo. No protection, no backup, no family to save you." Marco's hand moved toward his weapon, but Elias was faster. One smooth motion, and he had Marco disarmed and on his knees. "Please." Marco's voice cracked. "Please, I'll leave. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again." "You're right. I won't." Elias looked at Amelia, and she saw the question in his eyes. This was her choice, her chance to turn away, to maintain some shred of innocence, or to fully embrace the world she'd entered. She thought about Marcus, terrified and bound. She thought about the life she'd built here, the power she'd earned, the person she'd become. She thought about the fact that Marco Russo would do this again if given the chance, would hurt more innocents, create more chaos, all because he couldn't handle someone else having power. "Do it," she said quietly. "End this." Elias held her gaze for one more moment. Then he nodded. The gunshot was quick, clean. merciful, considering what Marco had tried to do. As they walked out of the warehouse, leaving Marco's body behind, Amelia felt the weight of what she'd just done. She'd sanctioned a man's death. She'd crossed a line there was no coming back from. "Any regrets?" Elias asked quietly as they drove through the night. She thought about her old life, about the social worker who'd believed in redemption and second chances. She thought about the woman she'd become, harder and more pragmatic. "Ask me tomorrow," she said. His hand found hers, threading their fingers together. "I'll hold you to that." Her contract expired on a Tuesday. Amelia woke that morning to sunlight streaming through the windows of the bedroom she now shared with Elias, acutely aware that today was the day she'd been counting toward for 2 years. The day she could leave. She'd fulfilled every term of the contract. Marcus's debt was paid. She was free to walk away, to go back to her old life, to pretend these 2 years had never happened, except she couldn't pretend. She'd changed too much, become too much, and she'd fallen completely, irrevocably in love with the man sleeping beside her. "You're thinking too loud," Elias murmured, his eyes still closed. "I can practically hear the gears turning. My contract expires today." "I know." He opened his eyes, those whiskey-colored eyes that saw too much. "I've been counting down too." "Have you?" "Every day for the past month." He rolled onto his side, propping his head on his hand. "Wondering if you'd stay. Hoping you would. Terrified you wouldn't." Her heart stuttered. "You never said—" "Because I didn't want to influence your decision. I needed you to choose freely, without pressure or obligation." His hand found hers, threading their fingers together. "So tell me, Amelia Laurent, now that you can leave, now that nothing is stopping you, what do you want?" She thought about her old apartment, small and cramped. She thought about her old job, fulfilling but limited. She thought about the woman she'd been, always sacrificing, always responsible, always putting everyone else first. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, powerful and respected, partner to a man who challenged and valued her, free in ways she'd never been when she was supposedly living a normal life. "I want to renegotiate my contract," she said quietly. "Renegotiate? I want a real partnership, equal say in decisions, equal share in profits, my name on the businesses we build together." She met his eyes. "And I want you to be honest with me. About everything. No more secrets, no more protecting me from the ugly parts. If I'm going to do this, I do it all the way." His smile was slow and devastated. "Anything else?" "Yes." She took a breath. "I want you to tell me how you feel, really feel. Not as my employer or my partner, as the man whose bed I've shared for the past year." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheekbone. "I'm in love with you," he said simply. "Completely, irrevocably, terrifyingly in love with you. You walked into my life as an obligation, and you became everything. My partner, my equal, my conscience, my heart." His voice roughened. "I don't want you to stay because you're contracted to stay. I want you to stay because you choose me, because you love me too. Do you?" Tears burned her eyes. "Yes, God, yes. I love you so much it scares me." "Then stay. Not as an employee, not as someone fulfilling a debt. Stay as my partner, my equal, my—" He paused. "My wife, if you'll have me." The words hung in the air between them, a question and a promise. "That's a hell of a renegotiation," she whispered. "You said you wanted equal partnership. Marriage is about as equal as it gets." His smile was tentative, vulnerable. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons you should say no. But Amelia, I can't imagine my life without you in it. I don't want to." She thought about all the reasons she should refuse. The violence, the danger, the moral ambiguity of the world they lived in. Then she thought about how alive she felt with him, how seen, how valued. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you. I'll stay. I'll be your partner in everything." His kiss was fierce and tender and absolutely perfect. When they finally broke apart, he pulled something from the nightstand drawer, a ring, simple and elegant, with a single diamond that caught the morning light. "I bought this 6 months ago," he admitted as he slid it onto her finger. "Couldn't help myself. I saw it and thought of you, beautiful and strong and worth any price. The ring fit perfectly. Of course it did." "No regrets?" he asked, echoing words that had become their ritual. She looked at this man she'd fallen for against all logic and reason. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that knock at 2:47 a.m. to this moment of choosing him freely. "Not a single one," she said. "Ask me again tomorrow. I'll ask you every day for the rest of our lives." And he did. 6 months later. The wedding was small, intimate, just family and the people who mattered most. Marcus was there, clean and sober and working as a counselor for people struggling with addiction. He'd found his purpose in helping others avoid the mistakes he'd made. Antonio Castellano attended, a gesture of respect and a seal on the partnership that had proven more profitable than any of them had imagined. The other families sent representatives, acknowledging Elias and Amelia as a power couple in the truest sense. As Amelia stood at the altar, dressed in white, promising forever to a man who'd once been her captor and was now her choice, she thought about how far she'd come. She'd been a social worker who saved everyone but herself. Now she was a queen who'd learned that sometimes saving yourself meant choosing the unexpected path. "Any regrets?" Elias whispered as they were pronounced husband and wife. She looked into his eyes and saw her future reflected back, complicated and dangerous and absolutely hers. "Ask me in 50 years, she said. His laugh was warm and full of promise. "I will, every single day." As they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, Amelia understood the truth that had taken her 2 years to learn. Sometimes the devil doesn't offer you a deal. Sometimes he offers you freedom, power, and love. And sometimes, against all logic and reason, you take it and find yourself exactly where you belong.